Hello, Miss Manu. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sachin. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for asking. First of all, thank you for joining us at the Net Talk today. We were trying to get your interview from a long time, and you've been so considerate to give us your time. We were eagerly
For
waiting for
having
this
me, Sachin.
interview.
It's my pleasure to be here with
Thank you,
you.
man. Yeah, it was eagerly awaited to have this interview because you have been in this industry of HR, L&D, and training for a long time. So, who better than you to actually give us a thought about that ongoing situation that they are? And you also seen the 2008 financial crisis in the IT sector back in the day, and then 2009, a little bit of recovery, and then a little bit down as well, and then many other things. So, for our viewers, ma'am, if you could give an introduction, that would be helpful.
Okay. So, when I completed my education, I was very privileged to belong to organizations like the Mount Carmel College, where the grounding in education was very good. When I had to make a choice for my master's, I came across this course called MSW. My family wanted me actually to do a mass comm master's, but I chose to do my MSW, and it was a Master of Social Work at the Bangalore University. I chose a specialization in labor welfare and personnel management. In those days, there was nothing like HR. There was no human resources. And personnel management. So I took that course. I was always an academically very good student. So I have a third rank in my PU. I have a third rank in my Bachelor's of Arts. And then I passed out of MSW with the first rank. My CV in those days, we also didn't have something called, campus hiring and campus recruitment. So my CV was just given by my college to a prospective employer, and I joined the Cosmos Leather Export in manufacturing. I was there with them for quite a while. After which I joined the Nilgiris franchise division, where the job was to actually go to different franchise units of the Nilgiri supermarket, hire staff, train them, and kind of ensure that they do the work well and manage the whole package of how to manage the store staff was handed over to the franchisee, and we had to retreat. So that was the job I worked with. It was a lot of traveling at that time to all the cities in the south where the Nilgiri supermarkets were being set up. Then I moved to the IT industry with a couple of organizations like Microhard, and I worked with Kshema Technologies for a while, and then moved to now Sinfo Systems, where I was their manager HR for quite some time. That was really probably my step up from being an individual contributor to being able to manage a part of that division. That was interesting for me. I had a tenure with Reliance Retail, which was an amazing experience. Because I was with Reliance at the time when it was a project phase, and they were setting up the retail industry, right? So the apparel division, for which I used to take care of the talent acquisition as well as the HR operations, was based out of Bangalore. And it was a very interesting time hiring people who are, non-IT, people who are from the fashion industry. We had a lot of expats. The whole orientation was completely different. It was very fledgling, the retail industry. So it was a very interesting time. My IT foray was basically with Genesis after Nows, where I headed the HR for the IT services, the IT consulting, the BPO, and the KPO divisions. We actually acquired a small KPO unit during my tenure at Genesis. Then I moved to SLK, where I spent a good close to 5 years, where I was the vice president of HR over there. A lot of new things happened there. I moved the organization from a 700-member organization to close to 3,000 when I left. I also headed their US HR, where we brought up that close to 150-member team we hired in the US. And post which I really wanted to take a break because of family reasons as well from that hectic, the 10, 12-hour corporate job that I had. So interestingly enough, I joined an NGO which was into anti-human trafficking. It was an amazing experience. I initially intended to do that for about a year, but it actually turned out that I was there for 2.5 years because the experience was really something that I totally cherish today. I joined them in the HR department, but the entire the sector, the development sector, the kind of work that they do, the kind of people that they hired itself was extremely, motivating and inspiring. Post being with the NGO, I worked with a company called Bioclinica, which is in the pharma sector. It is a unit that is predominantly in pharmacovigilance based out of Mysore with a product development division in Bangalore. I was with them for a brief stint of about a year and a half, after which they moved the position to Mysore and I was not willing to relocate. So I decided that the time had come for me to do something of my own. Having been in the...
And that's how HR Marga started.
That's how HR Marga started. I thought initially of just freelancing with a couple of consultants, adding to the leadership development experience that they had. And that was very interesting set of projects that I got there. I worked with a consultant called HR Footprints for the State Street Investment Bank, where I did 8 of their strategic management workshops. And then I worked with another consultant in Bangalore for the Infosys BPO, where I did some work on their HR upskilling for their HCM BPO. So these are some of the work that I did through other consultants. And then I decided that, it's time for me to go to market as HR Marga. So that has been probably from the end of 2019. So did a little bit of projects with startup companies, defining their entire HR infrastructure, their HR framework, etc. And, the slowdown happened and now I have started to focus on building products, learning products, which I think are very key in the way the industry is going to go ahead. So that's a bird's eye view of my entire journey for you.
That's very amazing because you started back in 1991, 92. And here it is almost 28 years and still going strong in that way. That's great, sir.
I think I've gained a lot of experience.
Yeah. So, ma'am, when you started off, back then there was no concept of HR, at least in the leather industry or somewhere. You started off one of the HR or being the HR, setting up the process and everything, right? The time since then and the time till now, how much changes has happened to the job of HR? How do you overlook it?
I think it's phenomenal, the changes that have happened. When I started working in HR, my main job was time office, that is the leave and attendance tracking. And we used to pay salaries through cash. So I remember that, the last 2 days was just counting the money, putting them in envelopes, getting the receipt signed. We did have a little bit of training happening for on-the-job purposes. But basically, this was my, attendance, bookkeeping, making offer letters, any documentation that was required, and a lot of statutory work. So that was how it was in those days, very operational. Today, HR is completely metamorphosized. It has transformed into something that's a lot more strategic. The kind of tasks that I used to do at that time is almost completely automated or outsourced. Like statutories, no HR department actually works on statutories themselves. Today, everything, even from the government, the PF and the ESI, everything is completely digitized. So there's not that much of effort as we used to go through filling out challans and forms for everybody. So those things have changed almost completely. And HR has become completely strategic. It is a lot more aligned to the business about what they need. It's a lot about talent. How do we get in talent? How do we develop talent? How do we engage with talent? So there is a lot of, what shall I say? The development of the organization is central to the way the HR thinks and works right now.
Exactly. Now, you have worked with a few of the largest companies in India, at least, like Reliance, SLK, and a couple of others as well. So and you also worked in a startup as well, right? So what is the major difference over there? Does the HR carry the same responsibility and the role or the power in the startup as compared to a large firm? Because in the large firms, what I've observed is HR is a very powerful department itself. They take a lot of call. But in the small to mid-sized firm, they may not be that because it's a direct CEO to employee relation. HR just facilitates that relationship, right? So there you may not be able to exert that power or may not be able to, set a culture because it's been set by the CEO or the employees or the managers who are there, right? So that's a little challenging to, get the right environment going, correct? So how do you see balancing those things, and is it good or is it bad?
So I would not add a good or bad tag to it at all. In a startup environment, I think it's a lot about setting processes in play, especially if it's an organization that has the dreams or the vision of growing big and also being employee friendly and an ideal place to work. Remember that one of the challenges of the startup environment is also getting the right talent, because they usually are working in a very niche or high tech area. They need to get the right talent to work for them. And to get the right talent, you must have the right set of policies, the right set of benefits, the right set of the environment, and the culture should be inspiring. Otherwise, the best talent as well as the younger generation who mostly, kind of work with startups will not be inspired to join a startup company. So in such a situation, you're absolutely right that the CEO is a lot more personally involved in actually engaging with the employees. So HR plays the role of a consultant or an advisor or a business partner in that sense, in trying to partner with the CEO to set up the culture, to set up a framework so that the organization can have a very solid foundation to grow and to move forward.
Okay.
So I think startups are very inspiring for somebody like me, because you get a chance to craft the whole story from the beginning rather than go and, be part of a system that already exists.
Okay, that's great. Now, we also see, a lot of the startups just bursting up because they are not able to go to the next ladder, or they are not able to do what they had planned, right? In that situation, a lot of firing is done, right? Now, how do you handle that critical situation where you had to let go of few people? It's very difficult, but then the job of the HR becomes even more responsible because you guys are emotionally connected because it's a startup. Very, very, less people are there, 15, 20, 35, at the best 100. You guys are somewhere synced in the same journey, but that journey is not happening anymore, and you have to let go of two people to continue that journey a little further and see whether it can go. So how do you handle that critical situation?
So firstly, I'd just like to say that when an employee joins a startup system, right, I think he's fully aware of the risks that come along with it, right? Because there is a vision, there is a founder with a vision, there is a certain investment that has been forthcoming for that founder to take that vision forward. If that vision doesn't materialize, I think most people who enter a startup know that it is tentative. We don't really know how things are going to go ahead. Having said that, it is always very painful, whether you're in a startup company or in a large company. It is always very painful to make that communication of letting a person go. It's not something that's easy for anybody. But at the same time, there's an organizational mandate, and a HR professional learns along the way how to do that critical conversation. A lot of it is about how to manage that situation with empathy, and how to build in systems and processes that supports the individual who's leaving the organization in the best possible manner, whether it is opportunities for upskilling, or whether it is outplacement that some organizations do, whether it is just checking in on the emotion and the mental well-being. It could be any of those things, right? But you learn along the way how to have those critical conversations, and dealing with the employee in an empathetic manner is the prime, solution for that.
Okay. Now, we also observed in your journey that you are a very capable L&D head. You have been into learning and development in most of your roles after 2003.
Right.
So, since 2003 till 2020, we know in the Western, in US or Europe, L&D has been a critical sector for a long time. And that's how it got into India, because when most of the firms were from those part of the world were operating in Bangalore. So that came as a function as well, right? And now only most of the Indian-born firms are actually started giving a little importance to that, which is training and development as well, right? Especially in the IT. Rest still a long way to go as well, right? Now, how has the L&D department changed from 2003 to 2020 overall in the corporate sector, not just a few areas?
I think there's been again a major transformation in L&D. Initially, like you mentioned, it was all about training. You just go out there and give a set of guidelines, or you tell people what to do. It's about being prescriptive, of trying to set some points and checkpoints and things like that. However, people found that that kind of learning was not retained, right? I go into a communication class, I learn about how communication must be done. Then I go back and, within a few days, I lapse into the way I used to be. Today, L&D has taken a lot more participative, a lot more experiential kind of a turn, where not just classroom training, there is a lot of experiential training, there is coaching, there is peer group learning, and there's a lot of other instruments that we use where we, do role plays, we do theater experiments, many things. The largest change that has happened in L&D is the use of technology. With a lot of e-learning that has come into the picture, people can also choose personalized paths. Earlier, if there was a communication skills class, the entire team would be asked to come and attend the communication skills class, whether they needed it or not. Today, we talk about crafting personalized learning plans for people based on what they actually need and what they must go through, because otherwise there is no engagement with the learner. If I'm not learning what I need to improve my skills and what is required for my job or my career, I'm likely not to be engaged.
Right.
So it's about creating those personalized paths of learning and delivering it in many creative, innovative ways, so that learning is not just cognitive, it's also behavioral, it's also experiential. And it's something that the employee or the team member takes back into the workplace with him. So we do a lot of follow-ups, we do a lot of activities, we do group coaching, we do individualized coaching, so that wherever the awareness and the knowledge has to be built up and behavioral change has to happen, we can support the employee in that change.
That's
so
right.
There's a lot
That's
of change in the L&D thought process as well.
Exactly. Now, the reason we want to know from you more about L&D is people earlier would be promoted based on their seniority, even in the corporate sector, or based on their performance sometimes, which I think is a good one, because performance matters along with the experience. Experience alone should not counter. When I say experience, tenure should not be counted, because ability and capability should not have any age limit and any time limits to grow. That way you are killing the talent, right? Now, when you are into L&D, learning and development, so how do you grow a person? What are the important skills that you focus on? What are the sets of skills that you would like to give to any employee or any person in the world?
That's the question here is, what are the skills that the individual needs in the role in which they are? I think that is a very important baselining that we need to do. There are obviously certain common skills today that everybody needs for professional success, right? Obviously, you mentioned already communication is a very important set of skills. Although we've been talking about it from a very long time, still we find that a lot of people come into the workspace without having the necessary communication skills to be successful in their job. There are also certain other things, like, for example, how do you collaborate? Today in remote teams, we have to work. So how do you actually set up the system for collaboration? How do you work well with team? How do you have relationships within your team, with your stakeholders, with your peers, with your bosses, with your subordinates? So there are a lot of those skills that are baseline, which are required for everybody. But beyond that, what a person learns has to be aligned to two things. One is what is required for his or her career, and what is he or she interested in learning. So if we do not kind of bring these two onto the table together, the learning as a whole will not really happen.
Okay. So technical skill is good for a person to grow to a certain level, because that is required obviously by a lot of organization. But is It's the personal, interpersonal skills, communication skill, organization skill, which is very, very important for a person to climb up the ladder faster and,
Right.
even to manage a team and to handle a team, because that requires delicate handling of the individual personalities and then taking them towards to a common goal, right?
Yeah. So what happens in technical skills is you come into the job, you're hired for a certain level of technical expertise. And it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely necessary for you to grow that expertise as you grow in your career. However long you grow,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be technically relevant. You need to understand what are the needs of your industry, and you need to continue to upskill. In many jobs, it happens as a matter of course. Like there are new tools that come your way, there are new technologies that you come your way, and you learn along with your job. However,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to grow in your career, if you actually want to get into management stream or you want to get into leadership, etc., there's a lot of the professional skills that you need to learn along the way. And it
Mm-hmm.
comes a little bit of it, of course, comes along with maturity of it. For instance, what you asked earlier on is how do you manage to tell somebody that they must leave the job? So
Okay.
having difficult conversations, giving performance feedback, performance coaching, how do you deal with an irate customer? How do you deal with peers who are equally proficient and equally powerful as you, your stakeholder management? This whole,
Mm-hmm.
how are you resilient when you go through many setbacks in your career? How do you bounce back and how do you grow on your strengths? These are all,
Mm-hmm.
professional skills that are very important for an individual to learn and to kind of progress and mature. So that is one of the reasons why today the whole concept of emotional intelligence has become so critical, especially
Yes.
for managers and leaders, because they need to appeal to the emotions of a large set of so different, diverse people, and they
Mm-hmm.
need to get them to come to their view of thinking, to influence them, to help them change. So these are all very, very important for a person in senior management and leadership.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's right. Now, some of the people are born with those kind of skills, like ability to communicate well, ability to gel with everyone well. Some people need to adapt it because they are either very introvert or they just avoid being social. Now, people who have that inborn talent hardly require anything because it comes naturally to them. So they even love it more if you give them the training because they're trying to improve. But people who we need to grow to a next level, because at particular point of time you need to make them a leader as well. That's the job of an HR or the CEO or the L&D head, because we're actually developing them. We're just not making them learn, but we're developing them as well, right? So how do you motivate, or how do you handle those situations where you have to make someone a leader at least, and motivate them to learn, because that requires a lot of socializing, talking skills, speaking to everyone, taking making sure that everyone is happy around you, but that person's original personality is of being an introvert. So how do you handle those situations?
It's a very interesting question, Sachin. One of the things is for the individual in that we're talking about to actually do a lot of self-learning, the
Okay.
introspection that the person has to go through, and to understand that these are his or her strengths. And these are the
Mm-hmm.
areas that that person must really focus on if they want to get into the leadership role. So again, it's a question of understanding yourself very well. And if you are aspiring to be a leader, if you are interested in getting into leadership roles, there are certain behaviors. I cannot change my personality, my temperament. These are
Mm-hmm.
very intrinsic to my biology. It is the way I am, right? But there are certain behaviors that I can definitely learn. Like you mentioned just now, I may be an introvert, but when I
That's
get
right.
into a sales situation or when I get into a team situation, the kind of behaviors I need to exhibit are
Mm-hmm.
very important to how I conduct my job or how successful I am in my job. So it is possible to develop some of those behaviors. I may not be able to change my personality, but some of those can be learned in the way
Yeah.
I, conduct my business. So that requires a lot of focused effort on the part of the individual.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about leadership development, we look for people who are high potential to develop them into leaders. And potential actually means that they must also have that aspiration and the interest and the energy to grow towards the next level. If they have that, and you are able to coach them and support them in gaining some of these capabilities, I think that's a very good synergy with which the leadership is developed.
Okay, sounds great. Now, due to this pandemic, a lot of people have lost their job. You being into HR, and now you have a consultant as well in terms of learning and development through your company, HR Marga. A lot of the people have lost a job. People who have students who have finished their graduation this year. There's no campus recruitment, or it's being what do you call frozen right now. It's on freeze. So what is your message to them in terms of how they should look at this time, and how should they abide by this time, and how should they utilize this time?
It's a good question. It's a very scary, very anxious kind of a phase now, because people who had very good careers and jobs in very good companies are losing it, and people who are coming into the workforce are not getting the kind of job that they desire. I think this is a good time, and I'd like to kind of probably take my own example. When I went into this pandemic phase, right, I had several projects on my hands, and my whole consulting business is looking very what shall I say, very positive.
Right.
I was feeling very, very happy about the way things were turning out for me in the way I had planned it. When you went into the pandemic, everything fell apart, right? So I think it took a couple of months for me personally also to kind of think of what I would want to do in the way ahead. And what I think it has done is it's given me a lot of time to introspect. It's given me a lot of time to read, to understand, and try to recraft how I want my company to be, or what I want to offer to the industry going forward. So this is unfortunately a time where all of us have to lie low, not be too anxious, because the market will open up sooner or later, hopefully sooner. But in the meanwhile, we have to build our resilience. We have to build our skills. And I think the main thing of it is we need to focus on ourselves and take care of ourselves, both physically and mentally, so that we are in a state of preparedness to be able to take on the opportunities that the market will throw up, in the coming months.
Okay.
So I don't have a specific message to give, because everybody has their own route to do this. Everybody has their own path that they will follow. But this is a good time to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of introspection, and a lot of planning for the future, because it's not something that has happened to any particular individual. The whole world is going through it. So things will change. Things will get a lot more positive. It has to. And we must be prepared when the opportunities come our way.
Okay, sounds great, ma'am. Now, ma'am, as you said, soft skills are important, which you call as the word which you use. What was it? Professional skills, right? So I just want you to throw some light on the skills. Why is it so important? Though we have covered it during my questions and everything, if it comes from your end, I think they would be the viewers would be able to grasp it much more importantly, because you are the head of HR in a lot of the large firms, and you are actually consulting a lot of people, right? So a lot of recruitment goes on, right? And in a company like SLK Software, as you mentioned, you started at 700 employees and you finished at 3,000 employees. So that's a massive kind of, recruitment you have done, because it is related to directly to the growth of the company. So you have grown seen a company scale to that level as well, right? So if you could throw some light on that, that would be helpful. Why is it so important?
So I think soft skills, or professional skills, like I'd like to call it, are really the differentiator between people who just come to the table with their technical skills, do their job, and people who can do more than just what a certain role entails. People who have professional skills are able to collaborate well with others, able to communicate effectively with people, whether it's clients, whether it's with stakeholders, peers, team members, whoever they may be. They extend their capabilities beyond what their job is. This is what we call potential. People who have good professional skills are generally high potential and can fit into multiple roles. Today, very few good companies are hiring just for the job. You hire an individual for the capabilities that they bring to the table, because technology is changing so rapidly, the needs of the industries are changing so rapidly. People must be flexible enough to be able to fit in several positions, right? There are also other professional skills like your creative thinking ability, your critical thinking, problem solving ability, which helps you transition from being hired and being considered for one job to being able to be a true contributor to an organization, along with its problems, its innovation, its need for leadership, its needs for having someone who can deal with crisis, being able to manage stress, that is a very integral part of the business and our work lives. So these professional skills help you deal with all these things, and hence that employee who has these professional skills or who learns and matures these professional skills is very, very valuable to the organization.
Okay. So basically, if an individual comes with a quality of being a leader, or at least we could develop them being a leader, it's much more easy to handle them. Obviously, they will have their own set of technical skills to succeed in job, but they will also be able to, reduce the stress on the upper management or the leader, because they will know that there are certain people in the company who can be able to handle this stress, who will be able to transform the situation that they are going through, so they will not worry more about it, right?
So what you're talking about is basically identifying a certain number of employees as successors to the leadership or to the manager, who can step in to roles that are required when the leader needs support, or when the leader leaves or has to take some break or time off for whatever personal reason. So what you're talking about is developing people with high potential, looking at having them grow or develop into future leadership roles. Doesn't take the stress of managing them. Everybody comes with their unique personalities. Some people are inherently easier to manage. Some people come with different needs and different aspirations. Having to align all these people to be able to fall into the organizational culture, aligning them to organizational interests and focuses. This is the job of the leadership, really. That organizational alignment and being part of the overall culture is a very important task for a leader to do. And that's when, that actual contribution of the employee comes to the fore.
Okay. Sounds great, ma'am. Ma'am, before we close this interview, a couple of very important questions. When you see these job openings, or this freeze being, lifted up from the corporate world, what do you see the situation where you can see normalization of all the things?
It will happen. I'm not so sure about how things will work out in the technology field, because as we increase the level of automation that happens everywhere, I think the skills that people need to bring to the table are going to be different than what we actually train them for in educational institutions. So I think people must continue to upskill, must continue to look at relevant skills that are needed for the industry today. And the opportunities are there. I still see a lot of hiring happening in the market. It's not that hiring is not happening. We have a lot of talent available, but is it the right talent is a question that we must ask ourselves.
Employability is the word for that?
Employability is the word for that. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And are you open to mentoring? A lot of the young HR would like to connect with you.
Very much. I have done it throughout my career with teams who worked with me and others who wanted to be supported in their career growth. And I'd be more than open to, supporting anybody who needs mentoring in their career.
Okay, that's good, ma'am. And also one last question. Are you looking to hire for your company, HR Market?
Not right now. Hopefully in some months' time, when the work is, enough for me to add to my team, I'd love to do that.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So, I really thank you for your time today, Ms. Manu Srinivasan. And, it was lovely speaking to you. We had a slight in-depth of the knowledge what you have, but still not enough, considering the appetite that I have for knowledge that I want to learn, and also my viewers as well. So maybe if there is a public demand, which I'm sure 100% there's going to be now, I will come back to you for more and more interviews.
My pleasure, Sachin. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a wonderful
Thank
experience.
you, man. Take care, man. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
So we were speaking to Miss Manu Srinivasan. So Miss Manu started back in 92 and she's still working in 2020. That's 28 years. She has seen a lot of changes in the career. She started off with a leather company as an HR head. So she had a very good experience in terms of handling people with different personalities. See, when you're working in a manufacturing company, basically in a leather-oriented factory, you're not dealing with the sophisticated IT guys. It's a different crowd itself, and it's a different challenge in itself. She has picked up the nuances of handling that, and it did not require any technical skills. It was pure professional skills. That is the soft skill that she was talking about, and she's still stressing on that because she has seen a lot of rough times because the company which she was working, Cosmos, was on the verge of closure. So they had to redeploy these employees who were working with them. So it was a very delicate situation because normally when the companies or the factories, as we would say, are closing, there would be a lot of problems in terms of managing the manpower because there could be riots, there could be fight because, as I said, it's not sophisticated. It's a little different out there, right? So she handled those things. Now, when she joined other companies, as you had discussion, she stressed more on the interpersonal skills, which I also tell. If you can communicate well, 99% of the job is done. You don't need to do anything else, whether it's an interview, whether it's your personal things and everything, because everything depends on the communication, how you're going to be doing it, right? So that's where you should do it. Now, my tip, I got an email from one of my subscribers, like, what are the important skills they should do during this pandemic? I said, like, just focus on more communication and the network that you have right now, because there are gig jobs, like a contractual job for 1 to 3 months, they'll give you, and also keep working on your technical skills more and more. So while you work on your technical skills, make sure that you give equal importance to your soft skills, which is communication, which is building network, which is getting a reference from somebody or testimonial of your work. So this is all important, and that's where you grow. Now, we are actually at the Net Talk, we are actually trying to conduct a more soft skill session very soon once I get the audience right, and then probably we all can join together on a Microsoft team or a Zoom call to discuss more on this one. This is very, very important, and we need to keep doing this, and that's how we all going to grow, and that's how we can help each other out as well. Having said that, what we can do now is focus towards more networking. So use LinkedIn, use Facebook, use Twitter, use Instagram to build contacts. You're going to get some work out from there. Upwork is a good one. Freelance also is a good portal, and there are multiple other portals that are coming up there. Okay, so don't be disheartened. I get emails. Do you have a job? Everybody has a job, but nobody has the money, so they are not hiring. So let's go with that flow and try to work out. Now, thank you for joining us at Net Talk. We look forward to bringing in more interviews. We are also trying to interview most of the my US business partners, and then probably we can get more insights what's happening over there as well. So we can learn more from that. Okay, so take care and have a great day.